Bosa had more to say. He was asked about Nick Sorensen and, like, what do you know about him? And he went into detail. He's like, oh, he's a real good leader. He's good in front of the team. He can talk to players. And I think he's going to be a lot like what D'Amico was for us.
Mm-hmm.
And someone was like, why? Like, because of his energy? And he goes, no, they have different energy, but just his sort of overall knowledge of the scheme inside and out and how it all ties together. And I thought that was really interesting. Like, Nick doesn't want to change anything about the defense. Nick is the defensive coordinator. And what he likes about the new guy is that he knows the system. And Nick Sorensen called him after he got the job so that Bosa could congratulate him. Quickly after that, Bosa was asked, have you talked to Brandon Staley? He said no. Haven't even said hello to him.
Yeah.
So it seems clear that this is who the players want. This is the player's choice. He's someone that they know, someone that they like, someone who calls them up and says hello, and someone who won't change anything. And I think the front office and the coaching staff maybe wants to change some things, which is why Brandon Staley's here. Kind of interesting.
I talked about this. I had a show this morning at 9 a.m. and I talked about this. I'm going to say it. I'm going to be real, keep it 100% honest with you people watching. Kyle Shanahan and Brandon Staley are the defensive coordinators for this team. Nick Sorensen is the guy that's the face, the communicator to the players that's going to stand on the sideline and have the players feel like it's the same old thing. He knows what we're doing. He knows us. He's a familiar face. We can trust him, respect him. I don't think they respected Wilks. And a lot of that is because he's an outside guy coming in, trying to change things up. And I don't think the players, the veterans that have been here for a long time, responded well to that. I think if Kyle, and I think Kyle knows this, and I think if it was Kyle's choice, he probably would have just made Brandon Staley the defensive coordinator. But because he's aware of this situation, he's like, Nick, you're going to be on the sidelines. You're the defensive coordinator. And really, Kyle and Staley are going to be game planning this thing week in and week out. And behind the scenes, Staley's going to be up in the booth, calling things down to Sorensen, telling him what he's seeing. And I think that's how this is really going to be structured.
Yeah, and it shows how much power Nick Bosa has. Like, Nick Bosa clearly didn't approve of Steve Wilks, got fired. Nick Bosa gave his stamp of approval to Nick Sorensen. I like him. He knows the system. He's a leader. He's a defensive coordinator now. And in as a quid pro quo, he has to show up to OTAs. Like, hey, man, we paid you. We bent over backwards. We did everything you wanted. You need to be here now and take ownership of this team since you have such a say over who the coaches are. He's like, okay, fine.
Yeah. Well, Bosa's brother, Joey, does not have a great relationship with Brandon Staley because Brandon Staley was his head coach for the Chargers, and there's a reported and noted bad chemistry between the two. And, obviously Joey Bosa and Nick Bosa have talked about this. I promise you that, right? That's his brother. And so Joey's Bosa opinion of Brandon Staley has to have some kind of effect on Nick Bosa's opinion of Brandon Staley. It would have never worked out if he was the defensive coordinator. You would have seen the same problem that you had with Steve Wilks, where a lot of guys just weren't buying into what Steve Wilks was trying to do. They wouldn't have been able to do that with Brandon Staley. I think Kyle probably would have wanted Brandon Staley to be that guy. But you're the guy on the sidelines. You're the face. You're the communicator. You're the consistency. You're the guy that they've been seeing for the last few years. So it feels like the same old stuff. We don't have to change anything. But really, I think Kyle and Brandon Staley are behind the scenes pulling strings.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's going to be tough for Sorensen. Like, at what point does he lose the respect of the players if they feel like he's just a mouthpiece? Like, hey, man, do we talk to you about playing time or do we talk to Staley? Hey, I just got benched. Was that your call? Or do I just go straight above you? Remember when Jimmy Ward got benched and he was like, D'Amico, should I even talk to you or should I go to Kyle? He's like, talk to Kyle.
Kyle.
It's not what I do here.
It's really Kyle. Kyle decides who plays where on the defense too, on the whole team, offense, defense. Who it came out this week? He's the guy. He's the general manager. Kyle's the general manager, the head coach, the offensive coordinator, defense coordinator. He's all of that stuff, and he has guys below him that help him with his responsibilities. But really, it's Kyle. And I think the pecking order on defense is Kyle really silently Staley, and then Nick Sorensen.
I just think it's interesting that Bosa and the defense is clearly scapegoated Wilkes for their issues last year. Like, we're good. He just didn't understand what we do. So he's out. And now we have a defensive coordinator who gets it and was here for D'Amico Ryans. Like, all right, well, then your pass rush better be top 5 again. Your run defense better be top 5 again, because both of those things last year were bad. I mean, the Niners ranked 20th in sack percentage last year. They were one of the worst pass rushes in the league statistically. And part of the problem is that they don't do much schematically. It's just a 4-man rush. It's the same 4 guys rushing the same 4 rushing lanes all the time. They don't do much blitzing. Their blitzes aren't that creative. And
Bosa
what they want to do is get back to what they've been doing. Like, don't you need to evolve? Isn't that why Staley's here?
Yeah. Bosa was vocal about not wanting to stop what they were like. They want to keep it simple and just let the edges get after it, which I think I think that's a mistake. I think you always need to be evolving. You always need to be more complex, or else you're gonna have Pete Carroll's defense in Seattle pretty soon. And you damn near did last year. I mean, they had a lot of talent on this team, but the play calling was not up to par. And it seems like that's what they wanted. And it's just like, well, if that's what you want, produce. Because you had 9.5 sacks last year.
Yeah.
You need to get up into the 12s, 13s at least, and then you'll have a leg to stand on. But I really think that's the structure of the defense this coming year, and they have way too much talent to not be a top 5 in every category defensively.
I agree. Before we move on away from Bosa, it occurs to me that he is the most powerful player the 49ers have ever had. If you think about it, I mean, I don't know. I didn't cover Steve Young in Montana, but he's making $34 million a year. Like, he has a ton of power in this organization. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, trying to think of who could be more powerful as a player.
Brock one day, but not now. Jimmy never had power like this.
I don't even think Brock ever will. I mean, maybe if he gets to the point where he's like winning Super Bowls in second contract. But
right.
I don't think he will.
Because it's always going to be Kyle's offense, but this is Bosa's defense, clearly.
Yeah.
He's the highest
paid player in 49ers history, right? Like,
he knows what he has ideas about what the scheme should be, about who the defensive coordinator should be, and he makes enough money that he gets to exert his influence. So hopefully he's right. Yeah. Hopefully he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Nick and Nick. Sorensen and Bosa running things.
Couple of Nicks.